Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Go ahead and grab those magnifying glasses and maybe put on your virtual lab coats because today we are all 6th grade detectives. Yep, we're going on this really thrilling journey to investigate the ultimate mystery, the actual science of what we eat. I mean, think about it. Every single day, whether you're sitting down for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you're actually taking part in this incredible scientific process. So are you ready to crack the case of the food right there on your plate? Let's get right into it.
All right, our investigation actually begins with a massive clue from the ancient past. There's this Sanskrit saying, Anena Jatani Jivanti. Translated, it basically means food gives life to living beings. Now I know, it sounds super simple, right? But really think about it for a second. The everyday meals you eat, they literally transform into the energy that makes your heart beat, your lungs breathe, and your brain think. I mean, literally, without food, there's just no life. And the central mystery we're trying to solve today is how exactly it does that.
Okay, let's really dive into this. Before we can even understand how food gives us life, we kind of have to look at how we prepare it. You know, the methods we use to cook our food, our culinary practices, have evolved so much over time. Back in the day, food was cooked over a traditional earthen stove called a chula, and ingredients were painstakingly ground by hand, using a stone silbata. But today, your family probably uses a modern gas stove and an electrical grinder. So our tools have totally changed, thanks to technology, but the core goal is exactly the same: preparing the nutrients our bodies desperately need.
To understand why we even cook in the first place, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you ever missed a meal? Like maybe you were just too busy playing, or you just accidentally skipped breakfast. How did you feel? You probably felt super tired, drained, maybe even a little grumpy, right? Well, that grumpy feeling is literally your body's alarm system going off. It's telling you that your fuel tank is running on empty. So what exactly makes up this fuel?
Section 1. The suspects. Meet your body's fuel.
Okay, it is time to meet our prime suspects. And in the science world, we call them nutrients. First up, we've got carbohydrates and fats. Now, both of these are energy-giving foods, but they work in very different ways. Carbohydrates, which you'll find in things like wheat, rice, and potatoes, are your body's instant energy source. It's kind of like a marathon runner drinking glucose water during a race. Boom, instant fuel. Fats, on the other hand, they're more like a savings account for energy. You find fats in ghee, nuts, butter. Just like a polar bear builds up this thick blanket of blubber to survive sleeping through a freezing winter without eating, your body uses fats to store energy for when you really need it later.
Next up in our lineup, we have the bodybuilders. Yep, proteins. Listen, if you've ever scraped your knee or somehow grown an inch over the summer, you literally have proteins to thank for that. They are the essential building blocks your body uses for growth and repair. And what's really cool is that you can track them down from 3 entirely different kingdoms of life. Seriously, you can get them from plant sources like pulses, peas, and soybeans. You can get them from animal sources like milk, paneer, and eggs. And get this, you can even get them from fungi. Yes, edible mushrooms are actually a fantastic, kind of sneaky source of protein.
All right, now we meet the bodyguards, vitamins and minerals. These are our protective nutrients. Now, you only need them in tiny amounts, but if you don't get them, disaster strikes in the form of deficiency diseases. For example, way back in 1746, sailors on these long ocean voyages were suffering from bleeding gums, a terrible disease called scurvy. Well, a Scottish physician named James Lind solved the case by giving them lemons and oranges, which, as we know now, are absolutely packed with vitamin C. Or take iodine. In the 1960s, scientists noticed people living in the Himalayas had this swelling in their necks called goitra. The government fixed it just by adding iodine to common everyday salt. So yeah, these nutrients are literal shields for your health.
But wait, there is one more suspect here, and this one's a bit of a rogue. It's called roughage, or dietary fiber. Now, roughage and water don't actually give you any nutrients or energy at all, zero. But they are totally the unsung heroes of your diet. Found in fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, roughage acts like a broom. It just sweeps through your digestive system and helps your body get rid of undigested food. Honestly, without it, your whole system would just get completely clogged up. Nobody wants that.
Section 2. The Food Detective Lab, testing the evidence.
So, we know who the suspects are, but how do we actually catch them hiding inside our food? I mean, we can't just see a carbohydrate with our naked eye, so we have to do some real chemical testing. Our first forensic test is for starch, which is a really common carbohydrate. It's simple, but honestly, it feels like magic. You take a piece of food, let's say a slice of raw potato, and place it on a dish. Then, using a dropper, you just add 2 to 3 drops of diluted iodine solution. If starch is hiding in that potato, the iodine reacts and instantly changes to a deep, dark blue-black color. If it just stays brown, well, the starch isn't there. Case closed.
Next, we're testing for fats. And the best part about this one is that you can easily do this test at home with your favorite snacks. Just take a small piece of food, maybe a crushed peanut or a potato chip, wrap it inside a piece of plain paper, and just gently press it. Be really careful not to tear the paper, though. Unfold it, let any water dry off, and then hold the paper up to a light bulb or a window. If you see this glowing, translucent, oily patch shining through, like where light actually passes right through it, boom, you've just proven that the food contains fat.
Now, what's really interesting about this next one is that the test for proteins makes you look like a total professional chemist. First, you crush your food into a paste. Then, you put it in a test tube with a little bit of water. And here comes the real science. You add 2 drops of a chemical called copper sulfate, followed by 10 drops of caustic soda. You give it a really good shake, and you wait. If the mixture turns this vibrant violet color, you have successfully revealed the secret signature of proteins. How cool is that?
Okay, so we have all these amazing nutrients that our bodies absolutely need. But this brings up a pretty serious question for you detectives out there. I want you to think about your own lunchbox, or maybe the snacks you grab after school. Which of those foods is actually a trap? I'm talking about foods that might taste amazing, sure, but are completely tricking your body.
Section 3. The Master Plan. Building a Balanced Diet.
To avoid those junk food traps we just talked about, a good food detective needs a master plan, and that plan is a balanced diet. We need to take all the clues we've gathered today and combine them into the ultimate solution. The first rule? Knowing the difference between the villains and the superheroes. Junk food, like potato wafers and candy bars, those are the villains. They're packed with high sugar and fat, which gives you empty calories, but they are completely missing the proteins, vitamins, and fibers your body actually craves. On the flip side, we have superheroes, known as millets. These are native Indian crops like jowar, bajra, and ragi. These ancient, small-sized grains are called nutri-cereals because they are absolute powerhouses, packed with vitamins, iron, calcium, and dietary fiber. Smart detectives always choose the superhero grains to fuel their growing bodies.
So this crucial point is actually perfectly summarized by Dr. Poshita. She's a nutritional expert from the Traditional Food Festival, mentioned in our source material. She says, health is the ultimate wealth. And it's so true. You can have all the toys or gadgets in the world, but if your body doesn't have the right nutrients from a balanced diet, you just won't have the energy or the health to enjoy them. Your body really is your most valuable treasure, and a balanced diet is exactly how you protect it.
Section 4. The Origin Story. The farm-to-plate journey.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Every single meal has an epic origin story. To understand this, we have to talk about something called food miles. This is the entire distance a piece of food travels, right from the moment a farmer grows it in a field to the moment you're chewing it at your dinner table. So why do food miles actually matter? Well, if you eat an apple that was grown halfway across the world, it had to be put on a plane or a huge ship, which creates a ton of pollution. By choosing to eat local food, you drastically cut down on those food miles. You reduce pollution, you usually get fresher, much healthier food, and you directly support the hardworking farmers in your very own community.
Let's move on and see how this builds when we look at the massive timeline for something as simple as a chapati. The immense effort required here is just staggering. For months, a farmer tends to the wheat out in the sun and the rain. Then, it takes weeks to harvest, thresh, and winnow the grains. After that, it takes days to safely store and grind that grain into flour. Then, it takes hours for trucks to transport that flour to your local shop. And finally, it takes just minutes to cook it and serve it right on your plate.
Which brings us to our final and definitely most important question for today. When you realize that every single bite of food you eat took months of hard work and traveled miles and miles just to give you life, how can you ever waste it? A true food detective respects the journey. So I'm going to leave you with this challenge. How will you minimize the food you leave on your plate, and how will you take charge of solving the mystery of your own balanced diet starting today? Thank you so much for joining me on this Explainer Detectives. Keep asking those questions and keep eating smart.